This is the reality. Global production will shut down. Look at your desk. Look at it around your room. Everything there is made out of petroleum, one way or another. And without it, this world shuts down. This is the consequence of the war that Donald Trump started with Iran. And if it escalates, the Iranians will shut the door on the world. The Iranians have far more power today than the United States does. That's sort of what happened here, is that we, by illegally attacking Iran, created a catastrophe that has fundamentally altered the global balance of power. Iran today possesses power beyond imagination, because unlike the United States, the only way we can achieve similar destruction in the world is through nuclear weapons. Everybody said Iran needs a nuclear weapon. They don't need a nuclear weapon. They have a nuclear weapon. It's called the Strait of Hormuz, and it's called Bab el-Mandeb. And when they shut that down, the world shuts down with greater destructive force than any single or nuclear weapon will have. So this is where we're at today. I fear that consequence. I fear what happens when Trump, because he's so weak-minded that he can't accept the fact that he lost. So he will attempt to escalate a conflict that can't be escalated because we have no ammunition. He will seek to bomb targets in an effort to put pressure on Iran. Iran has achieved a strategic defeat of the United States, and frankly speaking, Europe as well. Their control of the Strait of Hormuz, their control of Bab el-Mandeb, their ability to inflict damage without any ability to interdict means they hold the entire oil production capacity of the Middle East hostage. And if Trump were to attempt to continue escalation, they would destroy 25% of the world's energy production capacity, throwing the world into absolute chaos and anarchy and death and destruction. That's why Trump had to stop bombing, because we can't win. It's over. So what is Netanyahu going to say to him? Bomb Iran? No. Here's what's happening. The greater Israeli project is failing. It's failing in Israel. It's failing in Lebanon, where Hezbollah is inflicting horrific harm on Israeli forces. It's failing in Syria. It's failing in Yemen. It's failing in Iran. You know where it's not failing? The United States. You see, Congress right now apparently has the votes to pass legislation that'll, in effect, merge the U.S. Army with the Israeli Army, U.S. intelligence with Israeli intelligence, make it indistinguishable. And when that happens, the United States of America ceases to be the United States of America. We become part of the greater Israeli project. Now, some people say we already are part of that. I don't dispute the fact that we have a large Zionist element in government, etc. But there has been a Chinese firewall between the U.S. government, the Israeli government, the U.S. military and the Israeli military, U.S. intelligence, Israeli intelligence. They aren't the same. Can't say that anymore. And once the Israelis come in, it's like a parasite taking over the host. I've written an article about the green wasp laying eggs in the American cockroach and how the eggs take over the American cockroach. Israel is the green wasp. We're the American cockroach. They've laid their eggs and we're being taken over by Israel. And they're going to change everything. They're going to change the laws. You take a look at the Biden administration and look what they did, how they used the rule of law to go after anybody who articulated a policy difference between them and Russia. Look at me, for instance. Seizure of passports, FBI agents in my home accused of being a Russian agent, debanking, a grand jury facing 20 years in prison. This is what they were doing to me simply because I spoke out. Now, I want to just remind your audience that there's a reason why I'm here today, because they found nothing. If I were a Russian agent, I wouldn't be here today. So all you people out there who say that Scott Ritter's taking RT money and doing all this, FBI took everything. And they found no evidence of that, because there can be no evidence of that. There can be no evidence of any wrongdoing. So here I am. But that's just because when Trump became president, he had been painted with the same brush. And so in order to throw the Department of Justice off of his case, they said no more Russian investigations. But what happens when Israel takes control of the United States judiciary, as they will? People who speak out against Israel will be targeted, will be called information terrorists. That's already something that's happening. I was called an information terrorist. I've been marked for death by the Ukrainian government. I have hits out on me paid for by the United States State Department. I'm on a list, a terrorist watch list published by the Ukrainians, marking me for death, that was organized and funded by Chuck Schumer in the United States Senate. That's what happens when a government takes control. My passport was seized because the Ukrainian government asked the United States to seize my passport. The FBI came to my home because the Ukrainian government asked the Department of Justice to shut me down. And that's what they did. What happens when Israel starts making those requests? But it won't be a request because Israel will be in charge. You see, it isn't about an outside power requesting the United States government to do something. What happens when we get a blending of America and Israel to the point where it's indistinguishable, where Congress starts passing laws, but the Constitution is irrelevant, so people forget that the First Amendment prohibits Congress from passing any laws that infringe on the rights of free speech, and they begin defining free speech that's anti-Israel as terrorist activity. And they come after you there. Debanking can happen this quick, that quick. All they have to do, they are doing it. And you are on a list, I'm on a list, we're all on a list. And at some point in time, they're going to weaponize that list. Sabby, all they have to do is to shut you down financially. All the FBI has to do is make 3 discrete phone calls requesting clarification on a transaction. On the third one, your bank automatically shuts your bank account down and you have no recourse. They automatically seize your money, shut your account down, and you may get your money later because no criminal activity. They haven't charged you with anything. It's just the way the banks work. 3 inquiries from the U.S. government shuts down your bank account automatically. They use this in the aftermath of the January 20th thing where they shut down people. The Biden administration shut down people's accounts. They use it against me. They shut down my Citizen bank account. I did nothing wrong, nothing illegal. 3 phone calls, close it. This is a tool they'll be used. You're going to lose your money. You're going to lose your job. You're going to lose your passport. You're going to lose everything. And then if you continue to not do what they want, which is to shut up, they will come into your house. They will raid your house. They will open up a grand jury investigation and scrub you. Overdone. And if you have done anything wrong, you're going to jail. Well, what he's saying is that Iran, through the provision of Shahed drone technology to Russia, is an active participant in the conflict. North Korea, by dispatching several thousand troops to Russia, and if you remember, they were only used on Russian territory to actually throw back Ukrainian invaders in the Kursk oblast. That makes Korea an active participant in the conflict. It's absurd in the extreme. First of all, we need to point out that there's no state of war between Russia and Ukraine. Ukraine hasn't declared war against Russia. Russia hasn't declared war against Ukraine. So there is no formal state of hostilities that would, traditionally, invoke the concept of, active participant in the conflict through the provision of military support. If there are open hostilities, one can make that argument. Russia and Ukraine are allowed to have, economic relations, diplomatic relations, and military to military relations. There's nothing that prohibits this. And Ukraine did provide Russia with drone technology. There's no doubt about that. Russia is producing or was producing the Shahed 136 drone under license. Russia has since that time extensively modified these drones so that the drones being used against Ukraine today are so far removed from the original Shahed as to be unrecognizable. In fact, some of them are physically unrecognizable when you get into the Jiran 4 and above, these jet-powered drones. They're completely new missile. But at the time when Russia, go ahead.
Just to interrupt real quick, you mean Iran provided that, not yes, Ukraine?
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry, Iran provided it. Yeah. So that's the case. Now, if Zelensky wants to make this the definition of active participating in conflict, so be it. With North Korea, it's more difficult to make this case because the North Korean soldiers were on Russian soil, defending Russian soil from a Ukrainian invasion. So, if that's the definition he wants, so be it. But understand, Zelensky, what you're doing is opening yourself up because therefore every nation that provides you with military support is an active participant in the conflict. And therefore Russia has every right to be watching, to be aware, and to strike if needed. So Zelensky just made the case. And I think Europe should maybe call him up and say, what are you saying there, pal? What exactly are you trying to say? Because if you're saying that you have a right to strike an Iranian ship in the Caspian Sea because of some military to military activity between Russia and Iran, you've put us all at risk. You put every single one of it at risk. All the German factories that are producing drones that we give to you are now viable targets, according to Zelensky's definition. Hell, all of America is a viable target right now. Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, the plant in Scranton, the plants in Huntsville, the plants across the country now are legitimate targets, according to Zelensky. So, this man just doesn't think. He's a man who literally doesn't think, but this is an act of desperation. You see, he's trying to create the perception of a global war, and to expand this to global proportions and tell the United States we have the same enemies. North Korea, Iran are our joint enemies. You have to support me more, without understanding that the mere fact that the United States would provide the support that Zelensky's asking would, in accordance with the definition put out by Zelensky himself, make the United States an active participant in the conflict worthy of a legitimate military retaliation. Well, look, Ukraine has a history of using their intelligence services, the special forces components of their intelligence services as a force multiplier against identified enemies. To give you an example, Ukraine has played a role in Syria. Ukraine has played a role in Sudan. Ukraine has played a role in Libya. Ukraine is playing an active role today in Mali. The Al-Qaeda forces that came out of Algerian territory attacking Mali recently were trained by Ukrainian intelligence operatives. They used drones that were probably flown by some Ukrainians, but the Ukrainians are doing this as a force multiplier, as a way of weakening Russia, death by 1,000 cuts. That's their strategy. The same thing applies to Iran right now. We see, Zelensky bragging about striking an Iranian ship in the Caspian Sea. They now have Ukrainian forces using Iraqi proxies to attack, facilities in Iraq that are, controlled by the Shia, are related to Iran, that decide to create instability to undermine Iran's, grip on Iraq. So this is the strategy. They have a very active intelligence force. Now, people need to understand that from 2015 until 2022, the CIA was the biggest trainer of this. We were the ones who created these covert operation groups. So in many ways, what you're seeing here, they call it Iran, but it's CIA directed.